Hello, my name is Beth McDonald Stone, and I'm an avid knitter and knitwear designer coming to you from Bermuda. Today we've got kind of an action-packed episode I've got in my mind for you. So if it all goes to plan, the plan is we're going to talk about the Rosie Yoke sweater, my new design, which has tons of options. So talk about all the options, or at least hope to cover them all. There's so many. And also talking about an exhibition that I saw at the National Gallery here with regard to a Bermudian who started Fraggle Rock. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Rosie sweater, which now that I've folded it up and put it to the side. This was a really great pattern. I know it's gotten a lot of recognition. It's really great. It's a beautiful design, and that's, I think, why it's gotten all the recognition. There was another one, the Rosie sweater, that was done in like a 21 stitch gauge, I believe, and had multiple motifs on the yoke, and it was a bit more of a complicated construction, if I remember correctly. That appealed, and that was on my list to do, but I just finished the porcelain sweater, which is designed by the same designer, Lene, Holme, Samsoe, who's a wonderful designer. And that was at that stitch gauge, and a similar construction, I think slightly different. And when this came out, I knew this was more up my speed, because I feel like I'm really craving all the knits. Like, I'm craving all the constructions again, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Where I've been doing a lot of sort of this construction where you kind of do a little knitting flat and you get a really nice neckline shaping. I also think there's a great time and a place for a circular yoke, and all sorts of things like that, knitting flat, knitting in the round, knitting everything. I just really want to do it all. So I've been knitting a lot and designing a lot of this sort of stuff, and I was just craving the circular yoke. So you'll remember, if you've been with me for a while, I've got another sweater coming out in 2 weeks that's a circular yoke. So you can sort of see where like I'm moving and enjoying all the constructions, because I think they all have a place, and they all fit slightly differently, and they all have their benefits and stuff like that. So I just finished these. I wanted a circular yoke, and so that's what I got. And I liked it on a big chunky gauge, because I've been feeling chunky gauges recently, which is great, because actually we're having a particularly cold winter here in Bermuda, and so chunky gauge is just also what I've been gravitating to and wearing as well. So I did this, and I loved it. This was a really quick knit. I can't remember. I think it's like a 17 stitched gauge, or it's somewhere between 16 and 18 stitch gauge. Can't remember entirely. It's all in the pattern. I think mine was slightly tighter than the recommended, which just made it a little bit smaller, but only fractionally. I used a US 9 for this, and I probably could have just used a US 10. I did use the US 10 for the color work. I think that's a great tip and trick, to just go up one needle size. I'm finding more and more the benefits of that, especially this one. There's a lot of longer strands, longer floats. Sorry, that word just escaped me. I'm finding there's a lot, in this one there is a lot of longer floats. I would put laddered back to card in it. That is a technique I absolutely love. And I just didn't feel like it. And because it's an organic shape, it wasn't like a continuous sort of area for a ladder back to card, so I just didn't need it. So I just was really careful. I took my color work really slowly and just made sure I stretched it out on my right hand needle, where you're knitting into the left hand needle. You just want to stretch it out to make sure that there's no sort of pulls. And it worked out perfectly. So there's no floats caught in behind here. That's my color work. It's not overly loose. It's not overly tight. It worked out beautifully. Kind of like the Three Little Bears. Is that right? The porridge. Anyways. And I love it. The yarn I used, I also really, really love, and I'd like to find some more. So the neutral color here is Color Cosmos from Holst Garn Cielo, and it is such a spectacular yarn, and it is so puffy and juicy and lovely, and I think will wear really nicely too. I have knit another sweater in this last year. I knit my winter Christmas sweater, I should say, with the holly sweater by the lady from Knitting for Olive. Can't remember her name, sorry. Anyways, and I love that sweater. I do think it will pill a little bit. It is very soft, but a little pilling on the underarms. It's so easy to maintain, and I love it here. I will insert a photo here of me wearing it because I know that everyone likes to see that, just see how it fits and drapes and hangs on the person who knit it. That's me, and it's made for me. So how it worked out in the end, lovely. There's a little bit of sleeve decreases, but basically a fairly straight sleeve, straight body, a good size ribbing that I'm very attracted to these days, and sort of a mock neck collar. So I love it. I'm really pleased with it. I've worn it a ton. I find these colors really great. This kind of matte blue can also look charcoal, so it looks great with blacks, but it also looks great with blues and everything. So it's a great neutral. And yeah, I'm really pleased. So I'd really recommend it. I think it's a great pattern. Yeah, there's nothing in the design. I do know that Lene Holme Samsoe designs, I believe, in Danish. And so having knit a few of her designs before, there sometimes is some lost in translation, where things are a little bit confusing. I also find some of her charts can be really long and not overly repetitive. So it's kind of like a run-on sentence, and I find that difficult. But I'll be honest, this was really simple, really doable, not too mentally taxing, because that's really what I was craving. I did this right before Christmas, and I just found, it's a busy time. You really want to just enjoy and not get into anything that's too mentally challenging, or at least that's what I was looking for. And this ticked all the boxes. So I think it's a huge success. Love the yarn. Oh, and the color work here, the yarn for this, so I didn't mention that. I had some big Birdie from Dimond Laine in the color Midge left over from another project, and it was just perfect. So that's great. So yeah, a real win. I would highly recommend the Rosie Yoke sweater, and it's a dream to knit, which I really like. And then I also like that it's just a pure pleasure to wear. So highly, highly recommend. So that's that. So the Rosie Yoke, 2 thumbs up. Give it a whirl. The other thing is my featured pattern for this these 2 weeks. This is a new new release for me on Ravelry. It'll be out when this podcast is out. And it is called the Winter's Walk Sweater. And I'll stand up because you can see here, and I'll just move this chair out of the way. The original design was a tunic. I wanted something that, walking around, winter's walk outside. It's chilly, it's cozy, and I wanted to wear leggings. It's kind of my preferred for a cozy winter's day. So wearing leggings, something that covers my backside, something that's oversized and just really, really fabulous to wear around the house. And so I have really worn this a ton. I also, in this pattern, did include a ton of different options. You'll see here, I did a cable for the collar and hem with a simple sort of ribbed version of this for the cuffs. I've also done it here with just 2x2 ribbing on the collar, hem, and cuffs. You'll see here I did it with a crew neck, turtleneck option. This I knit, so the construction here is you knit a neck, bringing it forward as you go, increasing at the shoulders. So you've got kind of like a little sort of saddle. So you increase, and eventually join in the front, and then increase for your shoulders. So you're working in the round till about the top of the color work. And then you would either knit flat. So I just knit this one flat, doing the front and the back. I can't remember which one I suggest. It doesn't really matter first. So knitting flat and then rejoining in the round to knit the body. I know for a lot of people that's not appealing. So in the pattern, there's also this version, which is, again, doing the gray here to join in the round, continuing the shoulder shaping. And then I talk about putting steek stitches in here and here for your sleeves, and continuing to knit the round, then dropping the steek stitches, joining fully in the round without any side break in the pattern, and continuing. That way then you just reinforce the steep area with whatever way you prefer. I like to use a sewing machine and then cutting it. So it gives you two construction options for whatever you prefer. I find knitting color work flat very easy, but I am a English knitter, so I throw. I think if you're a continental knitter, I think it's just a little bit awkward with the motions in it. So you might prefer the steeked. I like either. The benefits of the steeked is, of course, you can knit around the whole way through, like I mentioned. The benefits of knitting flat is you have less bulk here because, of course, I've got a few stitches here that I've rolled. I find that kind of, there's a little bit of extra fabric here that's rolled inside where you've cut it. I find with wear that will get smoothed out more and more, and of course blocking really helps with that too. In both designs you're picking up sleeves. In this one I did a very wide sleeve, and in this one I did a very narrow, sort of more fitted sleeve. So it's really how you want to wear it. So this is like my cozy sweater that I wear just on a chilly day like today. It's just been raining all morning. There's a chill in the air, and I'm wearing leggings, and I'm just, about the house or going for a walk or that sort of thing. This is a little bit more maybe stylish with the fitted sleeves and the boxy body, which is another fit that I've just been loving so much, and you'll have seen it in a lot of my designs. I think it's a bit smarter. I would put a light layer underneath it, where this I've got like a turtleneck on underneath it, with everything. I mean, you can put layers underneath this, but obviously with a fitted sleeve, it's a bit more sort of, you've got, a challenge with the bulky under layer. Yeah, so it's got lots of options. What other options are there? Oh yes, in the tunic, there's also A-line shaping as an option. That's great. The pattern is basically straight, so you can just do whatever you like. Pattern wise, this is the full chart here that I'm showing you, and then you can see here I picked and chose which parts of the chart that I wanted to use, and I actually have in the pattern what I've done here, so it gives you this sort of a more traditional sweater length versus like a tunic length. It's great. I did include 3 different versions of this part of the chart, just that you have sort of all your options of 2 people and a pet, a dog. It's supposed to be a dog, but it could be a cat. Who knows? Doesn't really matter. So again, there's options there, and I'm trying to think, is that covering it all? I think so. The whole idea is really just, I'll just move my chair back, is that you can knit exactly what you want to wear and exactly what you want and how you want it to fit you. And I think that's really important. A lot of my designs recently have given you lots of options like that, because we all have preferences, and we should have preferences in what we like to wear and what we like to, how we like it to fit our bodies. So, even with this sleeve, this narrow sleeve, it's so straightforward. I give you information that, on how to make it fit your upper arm as best as possible, so that it's not like sausage casing and it's not oversized. It's meant to sort of fit your sleeve, so that's easy. This is a much wider sleeve. There's a lot of room in here, and so that's just a bit more generic. So lengths, fits, to steek, to not steek. Turtleneck, I love a turtleneck, I'll be honest, I really love a turtleneck. I think I really get cold in this whole section here. So I find if I have a turtleneck, and I wear these cotton turtlenecks every day, and I sleep in them at night too because I get really chilly. It's damp here. So if this whole area stays warm, I'm totally good. And so that's what I would gravitate to, a turtleneck, but crew neck is also awesome. I know that's a lot of other people's preference. Yeah. Oh, and I think I even included a more fitted turtleneck or crew neck, and then even a wider option too. So again, there's just options galore in this sweater. So I hope you love it. The yarn I used for this is Bare Naked Wool's Kent DK in the colors Mussel Shell, which is the charcoal, Driftwood, which is this sort of this brown, lovely brown, and white sand. And then this version is from Ewetopia Sustainawool colors Ecru, Lilac, and Olive. Yeah, and love them both. They're all rustic yarn, so easy to spit splice through it, which I often do. I think when it comes to the color work, I give instructions or suggestions, I should say, that you just carry the light color, the white, throughout. And I think I split spliced the joins between the different, like the brown and the gray, or the pink and the green. So there's really no extra, there's not a lot of ends to sew in, and I find when you split splice between colors, you don't have as obvious a jog. And I really like that too. So yeah, so this is a Winter's Walk sweater. It's on Ravelry now. It's 20% off, for the next 2 weeks, and that will end on January 30th, 2026. No coupon required. It's just automatic when you check out. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. It's a great winter's cozy sweater for January and February. February in Bermuda is the coldest, so I'm ready. Hope you get to be ready too. I'm sure you are. For knitters, we have sweaters, right? And if you wear a crew neck, you can always wear a shawl or a scarf, which I do too. So yeah, enjoy. I hope you love it. I really loved it. I really enjoyed knitting them. I enjoyed designing them. And I find that color work pattern for both of them really, really enjoyable, really fun. I knit this pretty much when I was up in the States for Rhinebeck. And I've got fond memories of getting back to my hotel room, whether it was at Rhinebeck, upstate New York, or down in the city, and just curling up and just seeing the pattern evolve, and that's really fun. So it's a good color work. It's not a complicated chart. It's very rhythmic with 2 brown, 2 white, 2 brown, 2 white, 3 brown, 3 white, 3 brown, 2 white, whatever. It's really easy, and I really enjoyed it and watched lots of really good shows and stayed up way too late, because that's what I do when I'm on vacation by myself in a hotel room with a TV, because it's fun. And that's great. So yeah, so these two on Ravelry. Is there anything else I need to say about them? Oh, and for everything, I know I'm moving quickly, or I do tend to speak fast, but in the description below is all the information on. There's a link to this pattern, and they also have it written out what yarns I've used and stuff like that, and just the names if names of anything fly by too quickly. So yeah, so all that's linked down below in the description. So I'll really tell you quickly about some other finished objects, because I'm conscious that we missed, 2 weeks ago I did have an episode. It was all the designs that I had designed in 2025, which was really fun. I designed 11. If you haven't watched that, you might like to. It's the previous episode. It was a fun year, and I love looking back on it and seeing the diversity of the designs, and again, back to the construction, diversity in constructions. And it really shows how I clearly crave different ways of knitting a garment to get a different result and a different fit, and continuing to explore that. So that seems to be a recurring theme for me right now. So that's great. And then coming up in 2 weeks, I've got a pattern that's a circular yoke coming out. So all sorts of fun, exciting things, and constructions and fits and stuff like that. So look back, look forward. I hope you enjoy. So finished objects. What I didn't talk about before the new year, this was the fun Christmas Advent yarns that I love to buy every year. I think 3 or 4 years in a row I've done it. And this is from Michelle of Woolens and Nosh. She does a great Advent skein of 24 colors. I didn't do the math quite right. I did knit this top down, but I didn't quite do the math correctly and was short 3 colorways, 3 days for the foot. I could have added 3 more days here, which I've made a note of in Ravelry. I'm a real Ravelry user and lover, and so grateful for the notes, because I don't remember anything. So next year I can remember that. But at the same time, I was short 3 days, so I used those days to, 1 day was for the toes, 1 day's for the, how did I do it? 3 days. So maybe 1 day each the toes, and 1 day the heel. But anyways, I was able to complete the socks right on Christmas Eve, which is kind of cool. It doesn't matter. Who am I kidding? No one would have known. But I kind of liked that because it was neat and tidy and it sort of tied up with a bow on Christmas Day. So that worked out kind of well. So I may or may not in the future do that. And the great thing is I've got notes and I can remember, hopefully, if I remember to look back. I am finding that I now need to use a 2.5 needle. I think I've become tighter with time, where I think I was a really loose knitter and I think now I've tightened up. So the 2.5 millimeter needle is my preferred, and it's come out with the most lovely fabric. I really like Michelle's base. And in fact, she's come out with a sock club for this year, and I don't usually sign up for sock clubs, but I did sign up for hers because I really, really, really love her base, and I love how it knits up and the thickness. I think I'm finding for sock yarns, if it's very thin, I'm not as much of a fan. Of course, I can hold it with mohair, but my feet get really hot. I know they're usually really cold, but I find if something's on and then all of a sudden my feet are so hot and I'm like busting out of it, I don't like that feeling either. So mohair is almost too much for me at my feet, but this is just right. So I think it's a Targhee mix, but I can't remember. But do look up if you're not familiar, and I'm sure most of you are. But if you're not familiar, Woolens and Nosh is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful company, and does great colors, which love these, but on a really great base. So for this pattern, I used Mystic Waves pattern, which is a sock designed by Ashley Coons, and it's great. I do love a old shale or feather and fan or whatever you wanted to call it, and it was just enough interest for me, and it worked out relatively well with the yarn. Like there wasn't, if I'd even turn it around, you don't see any obvious sort of, it just worked out really well with the yarn, I should say. There's no weird jarring points where the yarn self-striping conflicted with the pattern. I think it flowed beautifully. I did do an afterthought heel, so I did put in waste yarn, because when you're knitting old shale or feather and fan, your fabric does start to wave. And so I thought it would be confusing to pick up the stitches after, so I did put in another color yarn to hold the stitches. I was also sort of forced to put it in a certain row or between certain rows so that you were picking up stockinette. I was between stockinette rather than any of the lace details. So there is like this one line of another color here, but I really don't think that's a problem, and really liked that. So yeah, so really I think this is great. I think this is a great pattern for a self-striping skein, and I'd highly recommend it. It was really a pleasure to knit. So and I haven't worn them really yet. I should. I really like them. I think they're really fun, and it would go well with this. And that, anyways, cozy for cozy days. So that was really great. The other one, phone, 1 second. Sorry about that. The phone rings always in the most inappropriate times. But the other finish I did was this really beautiful pattern called the Prairie Blossom Bandana. And it's a, the word just went right in and out of my head. Mosaic. It's a beautiful mosaic knit. And it has some cable in the mosaic, which I've never cabled and done mosaic at the same time. Really fun. It took me, so it starts at the tip, it starts at the bottom tip and then it grows for like up. I have to say I had to really concentrate for the first sort of two sections of pattern repeat to really understand what it was asking. There was a lot of tinking back because basically with the cable crossings, especially when you're doing it flat, you have to do some cable crossings on the back side. And so it was a bit of a brain tease, sort of like, how do I want this to directionally go and whatnot. But I soon got into it. So basically still working kind of hard here, but then it got easier and easier and easier as I got up. And also I was able to, when I was knitting the front side, and if the cables were wrong or if there was a problem, I became more and more familiar with the pattern, as one does, and was able to block it out. I was able to drop down and just fix it. None of the stitches were really complicated. It was just sort of that kind of like that patting your tummy and hitting your head, which I can't do, so I'm not going to try. But that's kind of what it felt like when you were doing cables on the wrong side, which is really good mental gymnastics. And I actually really enjoyed it. I love mosaic or slip stitches knitting. I think it is slow, but I find it really enjoyable. I also find that it comes with really fabulous fabrics, and I love how the motifs come through. I think that's really exciting because it's more of like a relief, and I think that's just really fun. I particularly love it with spin cycle or color changing yarns, not necessarily spin cycle, but that's a great example of them because I think the color changing aspects really show through beautifully. This shows through in a very stripy way, which I like. So this is spin cycle, and for the colors, and the spin cycle colorway is Straw Baby. And I particularly loved how there were sort of pinks, oranges, and purples. I thought that was exciting. I did do a little yarn management with the green. I thought the green was a little harsh. I didn't want to not include it because I do think the joy of spin cycle is to use colors that you would find unexpected and maybe a little jarring, but it does tend to work. This is maybe a little bit more unexpected, a little bit more jarring than I'm used to. I don't mind it that now, but I'm glad I don't have sort of like this sort of 2.5 inch chunk out of it. So I think a little splash, especially when I have it worn, it's just going to be a teeny little splash, and I think that's actually really fun. Even though I did cut out a bit of a chunk, and I don't have that here, I think it's down in the spin cycle drawer just in case I need it in the future. Spin cycle drawer. I don't have a drawer of spin cycle. I have a bag of spin cycle in a drawer. But anyways, I do collect yarn. I live on an island in the middle of the Atlantic, so I do stash. It's really important because I really like to be able to start a project without waiting weeks and weeks and weeks. Anyways, I digress, and I don't need to apologize for my stash. But in the drawer with the bag of spin cycle, that is where my scraps go because you never know when you're going to run out. And even though I did cut out a good chunk, like a little sort of round ball, I was still able to do this in one skein of spin cycle. And the neutral color that I held with it is Magpie Fiber Swanky Sock color Soylent, which is kind of just like a soft mossy green. And I thought it made a really interesting combination there. I think I'm definitely going through a green phase. And everything I'm drawn to right now is in an olive green, and I can't get enough. Maybe it's because I'm missing my kid Oliver. He's at university for his first year of university away. So maybe I'm thinking of him, but olive colored green is really what I'm craving right now. So there it is there, and it's in everything right now for me. So that's fun. So really love this pattern. I think it's really great. I think if you're up for a small but like a gentle challenge, I would totally recommend it. And it's a gentle challenge. It's basically like, I don't know, doing a Sudoku every morning kind of thing. It's just a little brain exercise, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed that. And I'd highly recommend it. I think wearing it's a cool one. It's a really cool one. So those are all the finished objects and my featured pattern. My knitting whips, I only have 2 because one I'm completely obsessed with right now. And I am totally and completely obsessed with. When Stephen West came out with the Houses of Reykjavik blanket, I immediately was stopped in my tracks. I thought it was so stunning. And so I pulled from my leftover stash all the sort of balls of real like not toothy, but like not processed, not super washed DK, but just DK woolly wool. And I put them in like things like this. So I had it sort of sitting in my office. It's like a pile, and I knew for sure I had enough what to do, enough of the yarn and stuff like that. And then with the idea of giving this as a gift to do after, in that sort of Twixtmas sort of time. Not that it would take a lot more than Twixtmas, but that week after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year, I wanted to cast on something really fun and really sort of indulgent and enjoyable. And this was sort of the project I wanted to cast on. I was then totally immediately overwhelmed with color because the first part of it you do is this very geometric section of parallelograms and short row shaping here. So this section here, and you just work this in a round. And I was just paralyzed by my colors. So what I did, and I don't know why I thought of this, I'm sure I read it somewhere and I just can't remember, but I separated all the colors I had into 3 containers. So I have, this represents the very dark ones, and it still has the very dark ones. This represented, and unfortunately it's now a little mixed just because of where we are in the pattern. This represented the medium colored yarns I had. And I actually, this is the one color I chose not to use just because this I love, but it was a little too bright for my palette, but everything else in there I have used. So that this is the medium color, and, or should I say tone, and then this one, so I have to keep it like super straightforward. So if you notice, the darkest one was in a black bag, the medium one was in a marled gray and white bag, black and white bag, and the lightest was in like a white, because I forget everything. And so this one had all the palest colors in it. And that was really, truly helpful. How I confirmed they were the darkest, medium, and palest colors was to use the black and white setting on my phone. And I just lined them up on my sofa in sections and then jiggled them around to basically the tonal grading. So whatever was showing really dark gray, showing a medium, and showing very light, they went into the different bins. And then what I did is I just made sure I alternated those colors. So it would always go sort of, how would it be? Dark, light, medium, dark, light, medium, that green, dark, light, medium. And every 5 increments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would do 1 pale white wedge, just so that there is continuity all the way around. So that was really cool. And that really helped, because otherwise I just think it would be hard to figure out getting your colors in a cohesive way. And also I didn't want it to look blobby, as in too much of something. Oh my gosh, apologies. Sorry about that. We rarely get phone calls. Everything is email, but some days it's a phone heavy day. Anyways, so with that, that really helped just sort of organize it, and just allowed me just to go through very quickly. And this was perfect. So we had house guests, so we had lots of entertaining, and this little section was just perfect for it. After this little section, you join it in the round, and so you've got this kind of funny big squiggly circle. And then you basically fill in the squiggly circle that the gap in the triangles, and I did that. So there's, I think, 16 triangles. And for that, again, I love a little rule. I find it keeps me straight. So I just used whatever tonal range this short row wedge would be. So this is the light one. I used a light color for the short row wedge. So medium, dark, and so on. And that really worked beautifully. And as you're doing these little triangles, you're basically creating live stitches that go in a big round, almost 500 stitches if I remember correctly, and you can start knitting in the round here. And that's what I've done. I've used leftover neutral here, and that's been great. In fact, I think it's the leftover neutral from one of these sweaters, can't remember which one. And that's been great for here. And then there was these little baubles that was supposed to happen here for texture. And after all this fiddly stuff, I just really wanted straight in the round knitting and just not, I needed my mindless sections. So instead of baubles, I thought a great alternative would be just to do a knit row and then do a purl row, which gives a little texture and a similar effect. It's just not so delineated as sort of color neutral, but it gives a similar effect, and I'm very happy with it. And then brioche, and I'm working to fill the center section, and I'm loving it. Yeah, so I'm going to repeat the gold colors for these bands. So there'll be 3 sets of gold tonal bands, and then the 2 brioche sections and then a garter stitch center will be shades of pink. So it'll go pink into the red. So I think the first one was this, the second one that I'm working on now is that, and then the final one I want it to be this red here. So that'll be great. And then after all that, I'm to pick up the stitches around here. And to be honest, I think I'm going to be excited just to get the center done, and then I should really start knitting another design that I've designed, written it. It's ready for me to knit. Not ready to check at it. I design pretty much by sort of writing most of it and then knitting as I go, and things shift as I go. I'll talk about that because the one exception I did for that process is the pattern that's coming out in 2 weeks, and so that kind of created a few more challenges, but also made it faster and really fun. So it was like an exciting ride, but I do prefer to write a pattern, then knit it and change it as I go, finalize a pattern, and then send it to a test editor, test editors, publish. So that's my routine. And so what I'm giving myself is this time to sort of finish the center. It's now going by really quickly because I think I'm at like 170 some odd stitches. It whips around and it'll get smaller and smaller, and finish it up really soon. And I really like it. It's beautiful. Stephen West is amazing. I don't know how he can figure out the mathematics behind the geometry of these things. It's truly incredible. So he must have a lot of sort of numbers floating in his head and sort of basic rules for creating circles, like I'm sure learned through the Scottish, like the HAP tradition. But he's putting all that sort of traditional information and geometry and angles and everything, and coming up with something so modern and so much fun and so relatively easy to knit. It's incredible. I mean, where I say this one here, this bandana was definitely a little bit more concentration. I needed a lot more concentration for this than I do with that blanket. And that blanket is just going to be, it looks so complicated. So it's really interesting how designs can fool you. And especially Stephen West can fool you. So if you're ever looking at a Stephen West project or design and you're a little worried that it'll be too much, he is amazing, that he's simplified the steps and he explains things beautifully. So even if they are quite complicated, it's been broken down and explained beautifully. And quite often he has tutorials too, video tutorials on YouTube. Really, really wonderful. So don't be daunted by him at all. And it's such a joy and so much fun. But I'm sure you all know that because he's fabulous. And again, if you haven't tried one of his designs, I would definitely recommend it. You will not be disappointed. And then the final little whip is onto my olive green passion. I had some leftover green yarn, Dimond Laine. It's a cashmere, so it's really lovely, and it's Percy Sport DK. The color is loam, and I'm in my green phase, and I'm heading to New York City in a couple weeks to go to Vogue knitting, and I need a hat to match my green outfit. That is what I'm planning on wearing. So I'm going to be there in green, and I think it's very easy to be green, and that's what I'm going to be wearing. So I'll have a matching hat, and I think I'm actually going to wear this scarf that I'd like to take is the Stephen West mystery shawl that I knit this fall from this year. I love it. It's really fun. And I think because I'm really into neutral colors, I think that one pop will be really, really great for a nice cold winter's day. So I need a green hat, and I'm working on that. But that one I'm not that fussed about. That actually was great. I had doctor's appointments over Christmas and things like that, sitting in line, had to wait for a friend coming in off the airplane, sitting in the car knitting. And so that sort of round and round in a simple pattern, that's kind of my to-go pattern. And I think it'll be perfect for this trip too. So it might actually not be ready before, but probably while I'm in New York. That's the plan. So that's the knitting. And I'm going to move on to what I think is really cool. If anyone grew up in the 80s or just was around in the 80s and liked The Muppet Show, you would also know about Fraggle Rock, probably. I sure watched it as a kid. And so the Bermuda National Gallery had an exhibition on Michael Frith, who's a Bermudian fellow, and he wrote Fraggle Rock to be, and it was inspired by Bermuda, which is really cool. And it's funny, I'm Bermudian. I grew up in Toronto. I loved Fraggle Rock. My parents loved Fraggle Rock. My mother knows this family. She grew up with this family. We never made the connection. And so I never really knew. Michael Frith also did a lot of the designs for Dr. Seuss, all the drawings, and I had the books that he had illustrated. And I remember seeing Michael Frith on the covers. Didn't realize it was Michael Frith from Bermuda. The other interesting thing, Miss Piggy. Originally, so I should give it a little backtrack. So Michael Frith, Bermudian, did his education here, went to Warwick, which is where my son went to. It's a really old school here on the island, a really good school. So Warwick Academy, went there, and then from there went to, I believe, Harvard, where he did a lot of illustrations for the Harvard Lampoon. And that's where he started out. And from the Harvard Lampoon, Dr. Seuss found him, and he did the illustrations with Dr. Seuss himself. There's the two of them. On a lot of his books and things like that. So really cool. So a great illustrator. And then from Dr. Seuss came Sesame Street. So in Sesame Street, let me just make sure I don't say things wrong. He was the guy that did the Snuffleupagus. So Snuffleupagus comes from Michael Frith from Bermuda. So he worked at Sesame Street, where he met the creator for the Muppets, which is Jim Henson. And so he went and worked on the Muppets. So he was taking illustrations to the moving picture, to TV, and loved it. And so it was the beginning of the Muppets, and Jim Henson said to Michael Frith, I think we need a pig involved. And Michael Frith said, don't worry, pigs are my ancestors, because Bermuda, when the first settlers arrived, which were the people going to the colonies or to colonize Virginia from England, the island had a bunch of wild pigs, and the screams and the calls of the pigs were apparently really haunting. So before any human lived in Bermuda, there was wild pigs, which I think were brought over a long time before from the Portuguese, that never stayed, but just maybe left some pigs. Anyways, so Bermuda, so Michael Frith is quite right. His ancestors are, any Bermudian's ancestors are pigs, kind of, not, you know what I mean. Anyways, and so he said, I can draw a pig, and that on stage developed to be Miss Piggy. So he was the one that did the first concept for Miss Piggy. He was also really famous for Dr. Tooth, was one of his characters. If you remember Dr. Tooth, he was involved with the band on the Muppets, and Fozzy Bear was also his creation. So, yeah, so little Bermudians from a little island get around. Anyway, so he worked on the Muppet Show for a long time, and then decided to do Fraggle Rock, which is designed after Bermuda, the Crystal Caves here in Bermuda. So in Bermuda, we are all the island is limestone. It was volcanic. And there were beautiful crystal caves that are just full of stalactites and stalagmites. And if you were with me in the fall, I went with a girlfriend of mine who lived on the end of the island that has a lot more caves than where I am. The eastern end is older and has a lot of these amazing caves. And so we crawled around a few, and I showed some in the video from then. So look back, I can't remember what episode it was, but it was this fall. So not too long ago. So the crystal caves in Bermuda are gorgeous, and crisp turquoise water with stalactites hanging from the ceiling, stalagmites growing from below. Really calm, really cool, cold water for Bermuda, which is really refreshing. And sort of magical little hidden things in basically just holes in the ground. And so that is kind of part of life in Bermuda. Children found a lot of the crystal caves. There's one, some boys were playing cricket and a cricket ball went into one and they kind of got in and went swimming and it became very famous. But they're just gorgeous. They're quiet and cool and otherworldly. Anyways, so the otherworldly crystal caves of Bermuda became the backdrop for Fraggle Rock. And then, if I understand correctly, the characters of Fraggle Rock are also from Michael Frith's family. So the one that I always remembered was Michael Frith has a sister named Wendy, and I always assumed that Wembley was Wendy, and so on and so forth. So really neat. So if you want a little dose of Bermuda, check out Fraggle Rock. It's not being made anymore, of course, but it's still available and it's wonderful. Michael Frith is still alive. He was here in Bermuda. He might still be here right now. But I know he gave a talk at Warwick Academy where my son just graduated, and the National Gallery has this exhibition that's just a beautiful exhibition. And I'm sure he was here to see family too. And his family are also all a very talented family, very creative. I'm friends with his nieces, and I don't know their brother, but there's if you're into music, there's a really wonderful niece who is called Heather Nova. She's Heather Frith, but her stage name is Heather Nova. And beautiful, beautiful music, very soulful, very airy, very Bermuda. She's huge in Europe, especially Northern Europe and Scandinavia. I know she tours a lot there, but Heather Nova is his niece. And her brother, Mishka Frith, is an amazing reggae artist too. So really talented family, really creative, and from little old Bermuda. And the other little fun tidbit for those Canadians out there, and I'm Bermudian Canadian, I had no idea when I was watching Fraggle Rock, it was filmed in Toronto. So a Bermudian designed it, was actively involved with the whole filming and everything, and all the Muppet making and Muppeteering and all of that wonderfulness. But it was all happening in Toronto when I was watching probably just a few miles down the street. So cool. I love how small this world is. And so that's just my little bit of Bermuda trivia for you today, and a little plug to creative people on a teeny little rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So very, very cool. I thought you'd enjoy that. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and a little bit of Bermuda trivia. I've always sort of thrown in the end a little bit about Bermuda, whether it's just videos of the beaches or my walking and Bermuda itself, or some trivia. And I hope to do that, and maybe I can formalize that into a little Bermuda segment, but that'll evolve. It always does, all these little ideas, and that'll evolve into maybe a more official portion of my content. I know some people really enjoy that, and I hope you do. And if it's at the end and it's not your bag, don't worry about it, just skip it. But Bermuda's a special little place, teeny, 23 square miles, I think so, in the middle of the Atlantic. So between New York City, due east, and then the next stop is the Azores, and then the next stop is Portugal. Like, we are in the middle of nowhere. And I think it's because we're in the middle of nowhere and we're one of the most isolated ports in the world, even though there's a lot of traffic going across the Atlantic. So we're not isolated as in there's not people going by, but isolated as in we're 750 miles to anything. Because of our isolation, historically, people have had to be very creative for survival, for everything. But also, I think as the world has gotten more comfortable, we have to be creative for our creativity, interests, for, there's not a lot going on. So we have to make our own fun. And I think that's really cool. So Bermudians are creative people, I think. And sometimes they get international recognition. And sometimes you just never know. And it's a Bermudian there doing some really cool stuff. So anyways, a little bit about Michael Frith, the Muppets, Sesame Street, Dr. Seuss, stuff that just formed my entire childhood. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, happy knitting, happy crafting. Thanks. Bye.